Hello everyone, I guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are back again with another PWCC weekly review where I go through the top 100 soccer card items auction off this week. With that said, if you do enjoy the weekly uploads, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. Helps me, helps the channel. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into it. So starting off this week, notably the bottom price to get into the top 100 is $200. Typically lowest is around 100, highest is usually ever 250, 300. So this is on the higher end, I would say. We start off with an Itamar Pele. We see these a decent bit from the 1962 set. A gold Marco Verratti, which seems to be a pretty decent price to me, coming in at 200 for PSA 8. Pop one of two, none higher, but they're not all graded. I mean, barely any out of the set are graded. I'd assume maybe 10, 20%, depending on the player. You know, more notable players, higher percent. Nothing too crazy here. PSA 10, 2008, Luka Modric still doing a good number, despite those being pretty plentiful. Still hard to get a 10. A couple Erling Haalands. In this row, I thought the Buffon was pretty notable. I had the Andres Iniesta red version of this in the past that I have since sold, but I do like this insert for the 2017 set. I think it's pretty nice. I think I'd prefer if the faces were sort of transparent and had more color popping through them, but maybe that actually might take away, and then you just sort of have a small player. It's a little weird, but at the same time, I do like the card, and so $230 doesn't seem like a crazy price, especially considering there's Italian collectors, Juve collectors, Buffon collectors. They're all out there, so, really cool card in that regard. We have the first Eminence of the week here, at least, in the top 100, going for $250 here for this Ozil. We also have a Jude White Select and a Messi Campio. There's also then a Neuer Eminence, which, in my opinion, the thing is Ozil's such like a cult figure, and Arsenal being very collectible. I understand why they're similar. To me, it doesn't make any sense since Neuer's, in terms of historic memory, Neuer's going to be magnitudes over Ozil, but obviously that doesn't play out in terms of collectors. There's not tons of people, going every week to watch Bayern to see Neuer save the ball, right? That's not the goal, really. So I get it. There's a Marcelo Gold going for $276. To me, I would think Marcelo's, a much more collectible player than Verratti, but maybe this just speaks to the people going after treble in general. They'll pay up even for, lesser names like Verratti. PSA 9 Mega Cracks Messi, always like the look of this one. This goes for $288, which seems like a pretty decent price for a PSA 9. 6-year Mega Cracks Messi. Really good looking one, though, I will say that. Up above that, we have a Pele from the San Giorgio set. This goes for $300 in a CGC 5, which is a pretty low price. To me, seems like one of the, I guess, best bargains of the week relative to comps. I don't own this, but I'm looking to get one. There is also a number 175 in the set that's harder to find, so, which one I go for, we'll find out. This seems like a pretty cheap price, but, personally, it's not something I'm going to go after just because I don't feel that comfortable with CGC grading, in the sense that I don't own many, so I hear that they overgrade a little, so maybe this is more around a 4, which even at that point, it's still a relative bargain. But I just don't know with CGC. I've seen them grade a lot of fake stickers, and I really have no reassurance of any sort of, payout if it is fake. I know with PSA there's the guarantee. SGC is shown, at times, willingness to pay out. I think it just sort of is situational, and if you make a big enough deal about it, they'll probably be okay with it. But yeah, I don't know. CGC, I stay away from, but I do think that that's a really nice deal, relatively. 2019 Topps Chrome UEFA Erling Haaland Speckle Refractor next to a Ronaldo PSA 9 or R9 and a 9 here from 2006 Monday Chromo. Above that, we have a 1970 Jared Muller. First one I did look up this week because I was interested. This goes for $300. Now, backs are always going to play sort of an issue here, which is why it's harder to tell, but we'll just assume that, most of them are relatively the same. This seems like a pretty good deal. Last one went for $576, so, a pretty steep, drop off from there. One before that, one for $1,000, $500, $800, $600. So they've been between the $500, $800 range for the most part. This goes for $300. Something that's just, difficult for me is, I don't know if you guys notice this, but at least on my screen, it feels like this top one is lighter than the rest. And in the, world where we have to be right now, where we have to be cognizant of fakes, because, I think that it's prevalent. It's definitely shown. The Ronaldo fakes, we know there are people out there faking stickers. And so sort of newer players that haven't been faked always worry me. This is a player in a set that is pretty prominent. So, this one being lighter than the rest does scare me a little bit. I guess it's, more akin to this one. These look darker, which is all weird because it's on PWCC scans, and so it's just, it's such a whirlwind to figure out. But I do think it's an amazing sticker. I mean, $300 for PSA 7, pop 1 of 10.5 higher. I mean, that is just crazy high up there in terms of, where it stands grading-wise. So $300 for that doesn't seem bad. Near the same price for this Trent Alexander-Arnold. I looked this up because I was interested. We don't look up too much, modern, or at least modern rookies. And TA is a notable one, given, Liverpool collecting's a pretty big thing, and also just a notable rookie and a notable set. So this one goes for $310, last one $350, $208, $250, $210, $350. Now, if we go back far enough, yes, it was higher at one point in time, whatever. But relatively, this looks pretty good. I mean, there were best offers, fixed prices going for $200 to $250, and now this is going for $312 on an auction. I mean, that's a pretty swift move up, at least from what I'm seeing there. Jairzinho PSA 8, love the Jairzinho sticker too. One of the standouts for me, at least what I think of when I think of this set, just looks so good. You could say there's a lot going on. There's like 5 little appendages, or I guess 6 with the Brazil team name up there, just all along the sides, but I tend to love it personally. I think that looks really good. PSA 8 goes for $320. A sort of crying Pele there from the 1958 WS Verlag foosball goes for $324. And a PSA 3, we see these a decent bit, but it is still a fun Pele, surely. We have a Manuel Neuer Crown Jewels here out of 10 going for $336, so a decent premium over the other we saw earlier. In this row, nothing too crazy. Gold Refractor Lewandowski. This is pretty notable because, I mean, there was a time where I'd come on here every single week and be like, wow, these Sapphire Erling Haalands, no matter how many sell a week, in a PSA 10, they go for $800 to $900. Now, sure, this is an SGC 10, but in my head, I mean, if a card's truly collectible, I feel like it should be close to the same value. SGC 10 to PSA 10, sure, PSA is going to have a premium, but these going for $360 is pretty crazy. Pair that up with this foosball sticker, where we saw PSA 10s firmly above $1,000 for a while, and, SGC 10 goes for $360 again. Also, I mean, if you want to make a case, apparently this is an SGC Pop 1 of 4, so that is much more rare. So that's impressive. Not really, but, you get the drift. This one actually kind of impressive. We have a PSA 10 of the 2006 PK Mega Cracks. He does have stuff prior to this at Manchester United, but from what I'm aware, there's not really like good releases. So this would sort of be the first premium card, at least I think of. Goes for $360, pop 1 of 3, none higher. I was interested if there were any comps. Of course, there weren't, but we found something moderately close, which was a fixed price PSA 10 S-Day sticker that went for $500 in 2021. Now, this is, I thought, sort of before people, got crazy about pre-moderns. This might not have actually been a crazy price relative to what it could have been. But I do think this $360 for a PSA 10 seems like a pretty good deal relatively. So congrats to the buyer on that one. Pretty fun one. I own one of these raw, but that's nothing. I always thought it was a pretty cool card, and, a player that doesn't get talked about too much, but surely still will be in the memories of many. Puskás here, we have a PSA 8 that goes for $360. Big one here, I thought at first that this was a really high price. It is, because it is the red and blue back, which is hand cut, so that's a pretty big one there. We have a 2016 Orange Prism Lewandowski. I will throw out my hot take right now. That is that I like the 2016 Prism design more than both 2018 and 2014. I think both 2018 and 2014 are not very good. 2016 got very weird with the colors. Like, there's an out of 15 light blue and out of 20 orange, and there's other weird ones, so they lose me a bit in that regard. It's also a Euro release. I get it's not as cool, but I do like the borders a lot better. This was pretty shocking, but at the same time, I mean, it's an authentic, and it's got pretty obvious wear, right? If we go and look at the back, which we're not going to do, but if we were to do it, you would find that the back, you basically can't read anything, so it's a pretty beaten up version of this, but it is a 1958 Titulares Pele Authentic going for $370, which to me is pretty cheap. I mean, when we're talking about what we're talking about down here, I mean, these are the same price, or close to, right? I mean, this is $360. This is $370. I mean, that's a pretty good Pele rookie, at least for my eye. We have a 2004 Monday Chromo SGC 7 Messi going for $400. Decently centered, which is typically a problem on these, so that's not too bad at all. This 1974 Platini was actually one I wanted to sort of touch on. It got a little bit of a premium. I think the last ones went for about $300, so this one went a little bit higher, but I think deservedly so. This is one of the examples where I say, I think earlier graded PSA I'd feel more comfortable in, especially for some of the stickers with the removal aspect becoming a big thing. Certain types of stickers are much more prone to being removed in a good way, and this has been one of them. So we'll look at the back here. Typically, a couple tests. Basically, the simplistic test that I just always do is you look at the back. one, if there's any paper or any, obvious glue spots or anything, well, then it's stuck, right? But if you can't tell, right, what I look for, just at a base level, is the text looking clean? Does the text look crispy, nice and full? And I would say here it looks really full. And also, I'd like a little bit of corner wear. Here, there's really not much. I mean, that corner's got a little bit of something, but that is just a mighty clean 4. Now, obviously, it's OC, but I mean, not too bad at all. And this was graded in the 42 million range, which, if memory serves me right, is probably like 2017, 2018, I think, or maybe 2016. Nonetheless, basically before soccer was big. So one thing that's good is this was getting graded back then, and not many things in soccer were. So if it was presumably a pretty big deal. And, it gets a little bit of a premium, I think deserved, because, as we'll see later, there are now much higher grades that look much worse, at least in my opinion. And so, relatively, I think that's a good deal. Problem would end up being, if you do need to go and resell this, is the next person that buys it going to know that? Are they going to bake in the premium that this is an old cert with good text on the back that, looks really that's always the risk you're going to have. I do find it funny that we go from, 3 pretty iconic rookies just all in all to what is a Mason Mount Color Blast right above it in a PSA 10. From my eye, a bust. I don't know. Maybe he's doing something this year, but I don't think I've heard his name. I hated watching him at Chelsea, but, I was biased because I was rooting for Pulisic. Nonetheless, we'll keep it moving. We do have some Pele's coming up here. We have this Pele here from 1965 Calciatore. We'll see another one later. In R9, PSA 10 goes for $420. Above that, we have the 74 Beckenbauer, where he was basically, second best player in the tournament. They did win, so that's, also pretty important. PSA 7 goes for $420, which seems like a pretty high price. I mean, the 1970 World Cup, you see probably near the same price for the same sorts of grades. Now you see those sell a lot more, so that's going to play into it. But Jared Muller, 1965 PSA 8. I mean, PSA 8's definitely up there. Yeah, Pop 105 just one graded higher. While we do see these sell a lot, 8's pretty difficult, which is why it gets $444. And 8 of this is, relatively easy, but it is a messy rookie, so $468 there. We have Gio Reyna up here with the GOATs. What can I say? This is sort of one of the go-to Gio Reynas, at least if you're talking best of the best. From what I know, this was like the first auto ever out there, but there are other ones that are graded in 2019 slabs, while this is graded in 2020, so there might be some sort of technicality, or maybe PSA just isn't on the right page, whatever it may be. That is why it goes for such a good premium, because, first on-card item for him. So that gets $480 in PSA 10. Moving on up, we have a Messi on-card. We have a Totti PSA 9. We see these a decent bit, I would say. I mean, they're not the easiest, but they're not the hardest in a 9. From what I can find, at least, we seem to see them sell a decent bit. This SGC1 Crack Maradona actually went for a pretty good price in my eye. We've seen some of these sell for $300 or so. I looked this one up just because I was interested. We did see the one sell for $3,100, which we talked about, about a month ago. That was a pretty funny one. For one reason or another, we talked about it. We don't need to go through it again. But basically, I mean, yeah, last one, this was $312. This was $380. Or there was another one that was $380. This was $380. I mean, looks pretty good. There was one last night also on eBay that did $295. Now, initially, I looked at this and I was like, wow, those are some nice colors. Obviously, a bad photo. But when you actually go and look at the other photos, it seems like they took this photo purposefully in a bad angle to make it look a bit better. Because I guess if we go over here, right, there's some pretty obvious sorts of creasing that goes on. Yeah, you can see it right across the face there. There's one that goes diagonally up here too. I mean, there's just a lot of creasing, and you can see it on the back too. So I think that's why that went pretty low. This one I thought also wasn't a very good looking copy, but the front is clean and it's got good color, which is, hard to get. So I could see why someone might value just a clean, colorful, good picture copy rather than something else where maybe that isn't the case. So moving above that, we have a Beckenbauer. Here we are at 1970, so comparatively, a little bit higher than the one we saw earlier, but 7.5 there goes for $492. This is a pretty decent sale for the Di Stefano from the Bruguera Caramel set. We see these a decent bit, and high grades are a bit harder, but a 7 isn't impossible. 8s and 9s really become basically impossible. Here we have a 1010 Casillas going for $510. Not going to talk about the price here, but just a hot take, or maybe not a hot take, I don't know. I want to throw out there, I think the autograph versions of cards should be worth more than their unautographed parallel counterparts. I think that's a pretty, easy take to have. I think on 99% of cards that's going to be the case. Now, the part where you sort of argue it is, well, when it comes to a card like this, like a Topps Chrome Red that people just want. I mean, it's desirable at this point. People have made it enough of a thing where people want it now more for the thing it is rather than the auto. I sort of get it, but at the same time, I've never understood why you wouldn't want a sticker auto on your card. Given that it was released with a sticker auto on it. Sure, I wouldn't want to peel it off another card, put it on it, but if it was released like this, I feel like this is a better hit than the unautographed version. I don't know how that's debatable, but, you know, that's sort of where we're at, I think, in most people's minds. Maybe they think they're even. Let me know if you have a strong opinion one way or the other. I'd love to, you know, give it a read. But yeah, that's just something interesting. I mean, 516 for a Casillas card is still quite a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's like some sort of steal, but yeah, just saying. 8.5 Campione Messi goes for a little over 500 there. We have a PSA 6 Bisfalita of the Beckenbauer going for a bit higher than the 7.5 CGC we saw earlier. I don't know if this same one keeps getting relisted or not, but I feel like I see this every single week, so we'll just keep scrolling by it. This is a pretty low sale for the Aquarellas. I looked them up, but honestly, it's just so unfair to look at this one because this one does have just a huge gash right there, so it makes no sense to look at the comps. I will say this one went for $1,500 though, pretty recent on an eBay fixed price. That's always a little iffy. I'd rather see auction prices, to be honest, to get a good sense. But I mean, I guess these were going for $500 to $600, and those look better than this 500 sale. So, you know, decent sale for that one right there. We have this matchups that I'm pretty sure we saw recently. Might have been a different grade, but a nice looking one. I do like the red and blue and how it sort of blends into each other. The orange here, I'm fairly sure we saw this one go also recently. So, you know, starting to see some repeat offenders. It's also easier to see repeat offenders when, you know, it's a BGS 10 numbered out of 25 card. Like, whenever I see that, I guess it is a pop 1 of 2, so maybe they both sold, but I'm going to assume they didn't. So we see that go again. I'm pretty sure that's near what it did last time. I don't think that's much off. 1962 Lampo Calcio Pele going for a little over 500 there, 564. We have a PSA 8 Lionel Messi. So these, I mean, still doing decent prices. The BGS ones are getting, you know, kind of kicked in the nads a little bit, but those ones aren't. I mean, PSA is still a little bit over 500, close to 600 for an 8, so not too bad at all. Flash to do football PSA 5 MC going for 630 there, pretty high grade, but of course you got the miscut coming in to knock it down a peg. Above that, you do have 3 Pele, so I found it pretty fun here just to look at these 3 and these 2 down here, and all pretty much in the same price range in terms of which ones I'd want, because personally I'm not, you know, too much of a Pele collector. So just from the outside looking in, if I had to rank these, you know, I feel like the desires to say 1970 is first no matter what. You probably could make the case. I'll just say it just to be, you know, on the good side of everyone. But 1970 probably first. If I had to make a 1B, I would go with the Lampo Calcio. I really like it. I do know it's hand cut though, but God, I am just a sucker for those flags and just the rich colors. I love that one so much. The Flash to do football would be third. I mean, you could, you know, make a case that it should be higher. This one's pretty miscut, so I guess I could use that as my out, but I think that's probably the third best. And then the Calciatore, I do like it. PSA 7's really high grade, I mean, but there's still pop 1 of 8, 9 higher, so there's a decent amount. All of these are pretty close. This one's graded higher, I mean, PSA 8, but to me, I gotta put it last. I don't quite enjoy it. It's actually kind of scary if I look at it too long. But generally, some really nice Peles and, you know, strong prices for 60, 70 Peles. I mean, basically anything Pele is going to pull a good bit at this point, especially in higher grades. I mean, these are aided a bit by their grading. I found it funny that we also have a row here where, you know, we could compare which one we want. I found it honestly pretty hard. I'm like, I don't really want any of them, at least for these prices. I mean, $750 for a sticker auto. I'd go with Maradona because, you know, we're not going to be having Maradona autos. I'm pretty sure that's the year he died, and not that that really matters to any buyer. That's not a narrative for a card, but like to me that means something, right? You know, Erling Haaland, a sticker auto doesn't mean anything to me, and Cristiano Ronaldo auto I would like, but in a Juve kit it's just not the best. So you know, give me the Maradona, and I'll take the post-playing career card. I don't care. Above that we have 3 modern goats. I guess 2 almost not modern anymore. They'll be gone soon. That would be sad, but we do have Mbappe here. BGS 9.5 goes for $810. Really low price, or probably about what you'd expect now, but comparatively to what it was, you know, 6 months ago, pretty low. We have a 2019 sticker auto for Ronaldo, along with BGS 9 of the Campio Messi going for $810, the green version. Above that, we have a couple sort of eye poppers. I guess 3 eye poppers if you really want it to be. This Yaya Toure from 2001. We don't see this that often. I did remember seeing something like it, so I looked it up, and I guess we had a Lampo Calcio there for the Pele. It was pretty close. It was actually a pretty good sale. But this Yaya Toure was $810, and I guess was $550. Now is $810. So this sold, I think, the same cert number. Could be wrong. Yeah, same cert number. So 4 months apart. Usually when it's a week apart, I know it's a relist. When it's a month apart, I assume it's a relist. When you get to like 4 months, I'm not assuming that's a relist. I think that's just someone that, might have gotten bored with it. Pretty good sale there. So $810 from $550. Looking at the next one, this Garrincha goes for $810. To me, this was a pretty crazy price, but I think it's deserved. I mean, these are insanely hard to find with moderately good centering. Like, this is considered amazing centering for this set. There are other 4s, despite what PWCC is telling you here with a pop 1 to 0, just one higher. There are other 4s, but all of them basically have no border on the bottom. I mean, they're all just insanely miscut. This one, not miscut at all. Really good color. Back looks clean. It's got an eye appeal sticker. We can talk about the eye appeal sticker if we want. Someone mentioned last week that I was totally, out of my mind because I didn't acknowledge the eye appeal stickers on some of I think it was a Taddy that sold. Listen, eye appeal stickers, they command a premium. I understand they should, but at the end of the day, every single card we go through has an eye appeal sticker. It's the grading number assigned to it. Those are all eye appeal stickers. This is a separate eye appeal sticker, but it is just a different one, right? I'm not going to assign a massive premium to this person's eye appeal sticker over this person's or this, it's all silly. So sure, eye appeal sticker, great. Does command a premium here, I will say. PWCCA seems to work for it. One of the higher sales that existed for this one, and you don't see 4s a lot, so I definitely get it. Alternatively, again, we got a Kaboom Zidane. I just think that this is absolutely crazy, and whoever's out here, chasing these needs to be tackled. I don't quite get it. $850 for a post-playing career card of someone is just preposterous to me. I know, Kaboom, PSA 10, but those are, in my opinion, two of the most just hype words that you could throw onto a card to amplify value. And, that can only go down, really. I don't know if there's ever going to be, even more of a craze for Kaboom and PSA 10s. It just feels like, we sort of hit that and are still in it to an extent. 1971, Kevin Keegan. We've seen these go before. I did look this one up because I was interested. This goes for $840. Last sale did $788, and I think the same one sold or was bought for $1,000, so near the same price. Better than the last sale, and not the best looking rookie, I will say, but one of the few within the constellation of Kevin Keegan rookies. This PSA 10 goes for $870. We've seen these bounce around $1,000, so that's within the range. I thought this was a pretty decent price. I mean, $870 for a PSA 9. I mean, we just saw BGS 9 of this go for $810, and these are going for $870. Now, of course, PSA 9, not BGS 9, sure. But, I mean, these weren't really seen that highly of, at least the non-foil version. The foil version seen a little bit highly of. But, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good price, I would say. I mean, not easy to get 9s. They have, black and yellow borders. It's just hard, and they're always off-center, too. But, very good grade. In this row, Eusebio stuck out to me. I did look up past sales, and I mean, this one's, decently down. While we look at sales, I will mention that I've only just recently learned this from Cajun Cardboard. He does these types of videos for basketball, but you can put in parentheses what you want to look up specifically, and then you don't have to have all the other nonsense that shows up. So that's been very, very nice, and I can sort of make these listings more concise. So if you aren't doing that, please do. But basically, this PSA 6 goes for $1,000. Last one did $1,900. One before that, $2,000. So yeah, I mean, a decent bit of a fall. I will say though, these peaked at $2,000. And they're at $1,000, which is down 50%, but I'd say compared to a lot of vintage, or just cards in general, whatever, there are pretty hefty drop-offs that have happened, so that isn't terrible. I also will say, if you want to go back all the way to the beginning, at least of these comps that we can find, there was one that sold in 2019 for $700. Now, there was also another one that sold after this comp for $360. There's no picture of it, but it sold for $360. Net, average was a little over $500, and this one sells for $1,000. So, being up 2x after a soccer boom doesn't feel all too high to me. I think that these are, at a relatively attainable point. I think they're amazing stickers. Personally, the reason I don't go after Eusebio is I feel like once you get this one, you might be tempted to go further into the, early whatnots that are available for him, and to me that's just terrifying because there is so much, and it would just be so daunting. But yeah, I mean, just an amazing Eusebio there. Kaleidoscope 101, whatever. 1974 Platini in a PSA 7. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the PSA 4. This is a PSA 7 that if we look on the front, again, I mean, this one's about as off-center as the one was earlier. The corners, I mean, that's actually pretty worse than the one that was up here earlier. The corners look all right. But the back, that's where we're gonna go. Yeah, I mean, you know, you can basically tell, like, that is not a nice, vibrant black. Like, the back in general seems to have, like, sort of discoloration going on, but also just the text is so faded that, to me, I mean, you know, it seems pretty clearly stuck. Whether or not, you know, you could prove that or grade it accordingly, I don't know. But to me, I feel like there should be a premium on things that were not stuck, right? And, you know, if we live in that world, that PSA 4 to me seems like a much better buy. If we don't live in that world, and we live in the world where, you know, things can get unstuck, and if they look okay enough, they can still get 7s, 8s, and 9s, well then, you know, maybe this is the better buy, and yada yada. I guess it all depends on how you value it, what you really care about. 1947 Mazzola hand cut. This is a really, really cool Mazzola. Did look up comps, but there basically aren't any comps. I mean, you can find some other players. I mean, Miazza and SGC 5 sold last year for $350. You know, the Pushkas in here is just otherworldly at $25,000 for a SGC 1. Now, that was sort of during the boom. I don't know. Maybe it goes for near the same price now or a little bit lower. Hard to tell with something as rare as that. I know the high grades have gone for crazy amounts. But yeah, I mean, this is sort of another of the, you know, more notable ones within the set. So $1,100 for an SGC 5, not too shabby. Great card, great player, great way to memorize the player as well. And yeah, it goes for a nice price there. So really cool to see that in the weekly. We have a Cristiano Ronaldo booklet going for $1,100. I'm pretty sure these are the ones I've been seeing recently where like everyone had their redemptions fulfilled. So like there's just kind of hordes of them coming out to, you know, to market. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like people really care about booklets. Especially with like a white patch. I know it's on card and that's cool, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big booklet guy, I'm going to be honest. This PSA 3 goes for $1,100. I thought initially that this was kind of high, and it seems like it is. You know, the last one went for $950, $1,200, $1,500. These are all the same eBay listing and the same cert number, so whatever this guy's doing, I'm guessing he probably sold it for $950, because that seems, you know, relatively in line with comps. There was a PSA 3 that sold back here for $1,300, and if we go all the way to the beginning, the first sale was $2,600. So I guess if you go from the peak, sure, PSA 3s are down, but I will say, you know, going from $2,600 to $1,300 or wherever it's at now, $1,200 basically, it's practically cut in half, which compared to, you know, high grades, I mean, people are talking about PSA 10s being down, whatever crazy percent they're down. PSA 3 is only cut in half, which, again, and that's the thing, this is all relative to one sale, right? I'm saying it's cut in half from this one only sale. Compared to the other ones, I mean, compared to this sale, that's up, you know, 40%. Compared to this sale, down a little bit, sure. Compared to this sale, you know, down a little bit. Compared to this, I don't know if that's actually PSA 3, but whatever. I mean, compared to all the sales, it's probably about where it should be, right? Which is really, really cool to see. I don't think that sort of stuff's talked about. I think people just look at one or two comps compared to the peak and say, well, why aren't we there? And it's like, well, because that one or two people that were going to splurge at that time just aren't now. And so, you know, when that happens for every card, you know, we correct a little bit. I think that's okay. I still think net, we're looking pretty good. At least in soccer. Now, you know, some other segments I do worry greatly about, or I don't worry because I'm not in it, but I just, you know, I don't have that same confidence everywhere, of course. This is a 1958 Remington Pele, which is a matchbook, which is graded for some reason and goes for $1,100 as well. So, you know, you could break that out and start lighting your matches if you want. Kylian Mbappe 2021 Topps Chrome Auto. Crazy to me that this is the set that contained, or, you know, had a $10,000 to $15,000 price point at times, and now, you know, the card of the set and a PSA 9 goes for $1,200. Cool card here. You know, important in these times to mention, I guess, what card you own and what card you don't. I post a lot of my cards to Instagram, so I don't have too much of a worry. And honestly, I don't think people care that much about what I say anyway. So who cares? I do own this card. I like the card. I think this is a pretty good price. I mean, $1,400. Sure, it's BGS, but I mean, BGS 9 is pretty good grade. 10 auto as well, which is, you know, going to be pretty important. I think this is an extremely underappreciated, I'm not going to say undervalued, because I still think, you know, $1,300, $1,400 for Ronaldo auto is a good bit. But, you know, it's a set that's seen like a sticker auto, when in my opinion, you know, I'd rather have this sticker auto than most on-card autos, just because I think a World Cup sticker has such meaning that just because it's a sticker auto doesn't mean anything. I think it means more suddenly. But that's sort of just a fun niche that exists. I think this card's really cool. Problem is the Messi one, it's got his questionable auto on it. I can't convince myself that that's a real Messi auto, no matter how much I want to. I'd love to convince myself it's real so I could own the Messi and the Ronaldo, and I would like to get the Neymar, and I could put them all side by side. But I don't know if I'll ever own the Messi because I just don't feel comfortable with it. Nonetheless, I think it's an amazing set for the most part, and that seems like a pretty fair price. I mean, I've seen other ones. I've seen some raw go for about this price, so that seems pretty good. PSA 4 Messi 71 bis goes for $1,500. Interesting to note that those two are pretty close. I mean, PSA 4 going for a little bit higher than the 3. It seems like they're relatively in line with each other. Now, the Ronaldo is harder to get. He has less rookies in general, so I do think that this should actually have a premium almost. I don't own any of these. I do own a 71 bis, so I'm talking against myself here. But, I like these a lot. Interesting to see that they go so close. We have a sticker auto here from Topps Museum. Again, might be biased, but I think that this is infinitely cooler than this is right here. Now, that does have an S, which is part of his name, so take that into account. We have a 2020 BVB Holland Topps Chrome out of 15. I think these are pretty cool, or at least the Topps BVB releases, like Transcendent and Chrome. There's just some nice on-card autos for players like Holland, where I think you could get a really cool card for what is still a good price. I mean, $1,500 is not cheap, but I'm saying relative to other stuff, right? Alternatively, you go for a PSA 9 prize footballers. I like them both. Personally, I think the on-card auto has a little bit more allure to it, but I like the look of the prize footballers. If we had to go for anything in this row, I'd probably, take the NES, so like most people, but cool to see a red 10 and 10 go. Gem 10 auto as well. Don't get to see too much of that, and I think him only being 3 times the price as Casillas might be disrespectful to Iniesta, but at the same time, I think that goes to show how collectible the set is, which I think is really cool. This is something that there was a lot of debate. I didn't read too deep into it. I need to read more, and I will later, but basically there are people in the Vintage Discord that debate whether or not this was an authentic release back in the day, and it seems like some people from South America don't think that it is. I don't know where I stand. I don't really swim in the early Di Stefano waters, so I don't really have to worry about it, but it is something I'd like to learn and know about just in case. So, I'll look into it, but yeah, just something of note. This goes for $1,600 here. After that, we have an Alex Morgan 2020 auto going for near $2K. We have a PSA 10 Messi at $3,240. We see these between $3,000 to $4,000, so that's within the range again. Then in this row, we have a couple of Ronaldos along with the Pele, so nothing but goats. First off, we have a Flawless Ruby from the 2016 set going for $4,500. A little bit higher, we have a Cristiano Ronaldo Eminence white box 1 of 1 from 2021, but 2018 style. I'm not too sure what all this means. Apologies for my phone going off. I'll try to quiet that. But I don't know. To me, I feel like I'd rather have the Flawless just at first glance. I don't know too much about white boxes, but from what I am to understand, they're almost a make good for customers, and that, they basically give you a card, call it a 1 of 1, and, send you on your way pretty happy, right? You probably wanted something, maybe you didn't get what you wanted, and they send this as a make good. That's at least from what I understand. I see people getting white boxes in replace of other things they should have gotten or something along those lines. So to me, this is always something that's valued a little bit less or a lot less than the main Eminence set, at least from what I am to know. Maybe that's incorrect, but interesting to see those go at the same price. Personally, I'd rather have the Flawless. I also like the one-off scenario of Flawless. I think it's kind of unique. I didn't much enjoy the 2022 Eminence, but maybe that's just me personally. Over time, maybe it wears on me a bit more. Then we have a PSA 4 Pele. This one, not as much of a bottom border to it, but still a pretty nice looking Pele. Great colors. This one goes for $5,500. Did look this one up, and basically, really good price. Again, we'll look at the borders, and I told you, PSA 4, this is a PSA 4. It has no bottom border. Like, this is a fairly common thing, right? So, again, a little bit of a bottom border, but here, not great colors. So, in the past, it's gone for $3,200, $7,200, $8,000, $8,000, and $1,500 all the way back in 2020. So $1,500 in 2020, and this one goes for $5,500 now. Seems like a pretty good increase. Now, I think in lower grades, it's not quite the same. Like, you haven't seen a 3x from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic now where we are. But, at least for this one, it seems to be the case, and I think that's just because it looks so good. It is a pop. It says pop 1 of 1, just 1 higher. But again, PWCC has to be better at that. I can understand messing that up. on some cheaper cards, or maybe it doesn't matter, or maybe it's obvious that that's an error, but this is not a pop 1 of 1. So yeah, I don't know. That's problematic, but $5,500, pretty good price. Hopefully that wasn't in any part due to the the subtitle there. But and then we do have 3 more. Usually $5,500 is the end, but we do have a few more that sneak in. I will say this week, and I'll try to look every week going forward, but there were 6. These 6 were all in the top 100 for PWCC, which from my estimation is pretty good. I know soccer isn't that big, but taking up 6% of the top 100 from a niche sport that people say, that's pretty impressive. So we have 2 PSA 8s from the 71 Bis from 2004. Everyone knows the Messi rookie. I think it goes without saying. There's really no debate at this point. But here's the all-time graph. And I say this to show you that this is good, I would say. What we're seeing over here on the right is some pretty decent stabilization, and I'll zoom in on it. So if we look over the last year, down 23%, which I will say, everyone told me post Messi winning the World Cup that, he's the biggest thing. He's the next thing since sliced bread. Doesn't really seem like people are buying that, at least now with the 71 Bis and high grade. Now, of course, it's still a really expensive card that's seen somewhat often, so I could see why it's not holding a crazy price, but this is still pretty good. And keep in mind, this is only really something that peaked because he won the World Cup. If we go to 2 years, right, there's still going to be this high from, the craze that was. But if we take from June 2021, or let's say, let's go July, just to make this a little bit more kind to ourselves, from this data point in July to now in December of this year, basically a year and a half time, it's stayed put in terms of the price that it is. Now, one thing to note is that during this time, he won a World Cup, and it didn't do anything. But I think that's sort of helped stabilize everything Messi. Now, will that continue going forward? It'll be interesting to see, but I think that, if we look at an all-time graph, that's about what a lot of those graphs they teach you about look like, right? Now, maybe not to the same proportions, like you probably wouldn't want something to go up 10x. Maybe this is a 2 or a 3x ideally. But in this scenario, right, there's, this low point, this huge boom. I mean, sort of the first boom, the comeback, the second boom, and then, what seems to be a pretty decent stabling point down here. So some decent signs there, especially when you have 2 going in the same auction. It's always a worry that one's going to, slip through the cracks. Those both go for the same price. And then finally, we have a 1958 Aquarela Pele that goes for $6,000 to top us off here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Not too much to say. We see these quite a bit. So, I always poke fun at how are you going to grade something that's perforated like this. It's so hard to grade. I mean, it's so arbitrary. But looks a little off-white. Other than that, I mean, pretty good, really good centering. These typically, have pretty good centering since apparently they were producing them pretty well back in the day. Back doesn't seem to have anything notable, and it's pretty recently graded. I don't like the surfboard slab, though. This is an absolute atrocity to soccer. I can't imagine that someone has to pay, I don't know what the grading fee is on this, but let's just say $200 to $500, right? Someone has to pay PSA $200 to $500 for them not to even care enough to put it in a regular size slab, and then they just send you back this big bulky thing that won't fit in any of your cases. Why? All because presumably they just have too many and need to get rid of them. I don't know why they do this when any other example of a PSA card that you go and look up will not be in this. And they're just, it makes no sense. I don't get why. I feel like it happens to soccer more than other ones, but also I look at soccer more than others, so there's bias, but sad that we had to end it on that. I didn't even plan to ramble about the surfboard, but every time I see a surfboard slab, I just can't help but ramble. All in all, though, pretty good week. I mean, top to bottom was fun to look through. There's just, unique stuff everywhere, no matter the price range you're looking at. There's always sort of something going on. Taking a quick scroll through next week, I haven't looked at any of this yet, so this is right off the cuff. Oh my God. I have seen that. I found this very interesting that actually, if we go and look, let's take off soccer, and let's just look at the top weekly auctions next week in general. This Messi is right, well, this doesn't look as good, right? If you cut this out, to say that this Lionel Messi card that's the card of Lionel Messi, or one of the cards of Lionel Messi, is going for the same price as this rookie Tyrese Haliburton. I for the people that know, he's doing good in the NBA, sure, but it's a rookie. The fact that these are close is pretty laughable. The fact that these are close is kind of interesting. I don't know if this is you could say it's an indictment of soccer, that this, PSA 1 is the same as what is an absolute grail in soccer. Or you could say it's proof that, soccer's gained steam. I mean, this wasn't that big of a card back in the day. Sure, it was still a big card, but it wasn't, tens and tens of thousands or maybe 100,000 for lower numbered ones. It's just, it's interesting to see. I think that's a really fun comparable right there. I don't know if it's good or bad for soccer. I don't know what it means, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. This PSA 7 Verlag Cruyff goes next week. I've always wanted one of these unstuck, but this one, at least to me, again, we talk about the backs. This looks stuck to me. So, I don't quite know, but I wouldn't, I'm not a grader. I'm not going to say it's stuck, but also the colors don't look very good. I just think for a 7, it's a pretty poor 7. We have a BGS 9.5 Lionel Messi 2014 Prism Auto. Really good auto there. Also seems to be fully on sticker. 5.5 Ronaldo. A couple nice Cristiano Ronaldos from Impeccable and Immaculate right there. We have a PSA 5 with the eye appeal of the 78 crack for Maradona. We have a PSA 3 Aquarella. All in all, pretty good week next week. PSA 5 Jared Muller. Always interested if those are actually unstuck or not. Again, doesn't seem great. This should be pretty clear. That E's pretty crackly. That series pretty crackly. It's got typical signs that you probably wouldn't want to see, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm sure there's some other fun stuff, but we'll wait to get there for it next week. But that's going to be it for me this week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, if you did, make sure to leave a like. If you want some more videos like this, as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.